What's up, party people? Welcome back to Party XP. It's Jeff, and I'm here with Lakan. As always, say hi, Lakan.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
So we're jumping back in to an older episode, something that we covered in an older episode, something that I've really enjoyed and I've been waiting very impatiently for the past couple of months, and it's the Walten Files. So we did the Walten Files parts 1 through 3. Jeez, I think that was like one of the single-digit episodes, right?
I think that might have been within our first 10 episodes, probably.
Yeah, so here we are all the way down at 61. Can't believe it's been 61. You just said that.
We're killing it.
We're going to finally be able to cover Walten Files Part 4 because it dropped a few months ago. As you all may or may not know, things have been a little hectic on my end of the microphone here. So we finally got around to doing this. So I'm very excited to finally dig back into this. This is a series that I really loved. And from the opening moments of this episode, you could tell things are a lot different, and the animation quality and the quality of the entire, I guess, film, the entire short in general, has skyrocketed. I mean, it's really impressive what Martin Walls has done here in creating this. I don't know if you want to give people a refresher first, or I can do it too.
Yeah.
We should probably do that, right? To catch people back
We
up.
should, yeah.
I mean, you can always listen to the older episode, but we're better at this now, I think. Maybe.
I think so.
Slightly.
Yeah, so we did the original Walten Files part 1, 2, and 3. Episode 13. We just started the double digits.
Right. Okay. So it's been a minute.
A little time, so I definitely had to refresh myself as well coming into this episode. But kind of once I started watching, some bits and pieces were I remember kind of who was where and what was possessing what, or what was shoved into what. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and just do a quick rewatch of the parts 1, 2, and 3. So I guess if I think maybe you should do it because you were the person who got me into this. You probably remember more of the details than I do.
Mm-hmm. Right. As somebody who hasn't watched the originals in a while but did watch them a lot, I think we can kind of collaborate on this. So basically, the gist of the Walten Files is it's kind of a mix of the YouTube analog horror sort of genre and the Five Nights at Freddy's genre, right?
Yes.
So you have these, possessed animatronics or possessed mascot characters, right? Mascot horror has kind of become its own sort of genre here, combining with the 80s and 90s style analog horror, based on VHS tapes and all of that, to increase the drama, right?
Mm-hmm.
It revolves around a now, not deceased,
defunct,
but I guess defunct, right? Food chain called Bon's Burgers, starring Bon the bunny, this big blue guy. You have Shah the sheep. You have Buzu the ringmaster. Then you have Banny the bunny, which is a purple bunny, very different, and Billy the clown.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the first 3 episodes, you kind of get the idea of what's been going on behind the scenes. What starts off as a joint venture between 2 guys, Jack Walton and Felix Kranken, who both, for some reason, somehow had a dream to open up a character mascot burger chain. This very odd and unique dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they team up and they start the business, and everything's fine. One thing after another starts to occur, and then Felix kind of takes over the company and all of the training materials that we're privy to, and starts gassing himself up, basically, right? So
yes. And
then it kind of turns into a thing where Jack has to, we assume Jack is dead, and his soul sort of makes itself appear in various places throughout the I don't know, the training materials and all of that, just kind of show that, hey, I'm still here, and I know what you did, and kind of things like that, because it comes to find out that Felix picked up Jack's kids from school, from a dance, and he gets completely shit-faced, gets into an accident, and kills them both, right?
Yes.
So everything kind of spirals down from there. I don't know if I missed anything.
I guess we can also talk about like the time frame that these were kind of told in the story, right? This is like in the 1970s.
Right, so it goes through the 70s and the 80s through, like I said, so through the analog horror lens. So it's a lot of VHS tapes. It's a lot of old camcorder footage, right?
And then even like a retro video game.
Oh, right.
The third episode format.
That's right.
It's footage from people looking for the warehouse that these animatronics were supposedly stored in. Some of the old training videos, some overdubbed and over-recorded VHSs, so that you get a lot of this creepy ghosting and artifacting when you get to watch these, right? There's a lot of like cryptic hidden messages in the film. And then as like a full-on experimental kind of, or not experimental, but like explorative kind of analog horror project, they also have things hidden in like the description of the videos on YouTube. Right. They have an external website where they have clues and information drops. Some really cool ideas of like mining information, right? Like you could like select all on the page and find like a letter from somebody on the page, right? And the thing is, because they're regularly updating this, certain things will only be up for a certain amount of time before the next update or drop is released, and then the previous information is no longer there. But because people are very invested and involved with this whole series now, as viewers, people have like kind of come together and started like archiving, the different releases, different updates, all of the information that they can all, piece together across the internet, across the fandom, and kind of collect it all. And of course there's a wiki for it, basically, which is that's essentially the hub now, where everyone kind of like has the history, or I guess the viewer's perspective of all of this creative project, exploring the Walten Files.
Right. So the website, we talked about it, I think, on the previous episode, was findjackwalton.com. It's still being updated with different sorts of lore bits and other things related to the Walten Files. Like a lot of these good ARG kind of sites, you can play around with clickable links and other things on the website. There's ciphers that you can, go through and find different links. But then, of course, you can just kind of brute force it and just put in character names, put in, random words, and put in whatever, tickles your fancy. And eventually you'll stumble upon something, right?
Yeah. Backtracking a little bit in terms of the story, we can also reference the other side characters, other main characters, right? So you mentioned Jack, you mentioned Felix, who are, again, the heads of
the company, yeah.
The company Bondsburgers, and they are integrated with the under management of Bunny Smiles Incorporated. Was that referenced in the previous episodes, or was that touched upon more, or kind of expanded more in this?
Oh no,
episode
Bunny
4?
Smiles was a major part in the first episodes, because remember, we're watching the training tapes.
Yes. Okay, cool. So I'm just trying to refresh myself again, even though I literally just watched it again. It's hard to keep track now. But yeah, you mentioned Felix picking up Jack's children, Ed and Molly. That was towards the end of the third episode. And in the second episode and the first episode, we see like previous employees of both companies, right, disappearing, and then we find them being stuffed into some of the animatronic characters. What was the name of the group again? Like it's like Bond of the Experience, or whatever they're called.
The Showstoppers.
The Showstoppers. There we go. Yeah. So like the different, we essentially come to the conclusion that as other employees are killed, they are stuffed into the other Showstopper characters. Basically, we see it almost feels like a cryptic message of like asking for help from some of the characters. Right. Some are just evidence of them being murdered.
Right.
And then you'll see like a animation of some sort, or things that allude to them being stuffed into the characters. They don't explicitly say it for some of them. And in this one, definitely it does. Like, we actually see it happen in this episode. But the other ones are more like alluded that they're connected and they're being forced into the characters of the Showstopper characters.
The big thing is, like, everybody sort of, all the main Bunny Smiles Incorporated people have a corresponding animatronic, right? So you have Shaw the sheep is supposedly possessed by Rosemary Walten, Jack's wife, right? Buzu the ringmaster is supposedly possessed by Charles, basically like the money of the whole operation. He was kind of like, from what we gather, he was like the investor of the like he was like the money behind Bunny Smiles Incorporated, right? To open the restaurant so that he could get like a return. At least as far as we can like assume, because the ringmaster, right? You figure he's kind of like the guy that runs the show. So, but who knows, right? It could just be whatever, right?
Inside of Buzu is Charles. Charles Brooke was in was like the computer supervisor. He was focused on in episode 4.
Right. Okay, that's right. So we thought that he was like the money, right? That's right. Okay, my bad. Yeah, no, the running fan theory for a long time, and Matt Pat kind of touched on this, was that he was like the money. He was the ringmaster of the whole operation, but he does have an important part to play in this and in this 4th episode too. So
yes, but
he is just like the computer guy, right? One of the computer people again.
Yeah.
Same thing here with Banny. Banny the purple bunny is possessed by Susan Whittings, who's just like another programmer. Head technician is her title. Funny though how like his wife, because we obviously we all kind of assume that Jack is possessing Bon, and we'll get into kind of maybe how that's being challenged in this 4th episode. But it's interesting that the other bunny isn't his wife; it's this other woman, right? But it could be nothing.
The first bit of information we get with Susan being inside of Banny was in the Relocate project, which was episode 2.
Yeah, well, it's the second tape, right? It's like the
the second.
So,
So
like
the second tape of it. Yeah, we see like the deceased picture of her in black and white. I remember that part, like her kind of held tilting to the side, as essentially kind of wasting away, and we hear about what is it? There was something specific. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember there was like something that was like something repeatedly saying something.
The rabbit is starving. The rabbit is. Oh no!
There we go.
Susan.
Yeah. Something is that Susan? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's Banny and Susan. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Keep getting my character.
So that was our. So she was introduced in episode 2, and she is. I guess it's basically just expanded upon in this one, right? In this one, and it also happened in Bunny Farm, which was the 3rd episode. And so we just get some more exploration of the background of the characters, expansion of their stories, how they're actually involved. We saw her death already, or we saw, I guess, her on the verge of death technically in the 2nd episode and the 3rd episode.
And then lastly, you have Billy the clown. He is possessed supposedly by Ashley Parks, who is like the woman you hear during the Relocate project when they go into the warehouse. So she's like the main person in there. So like I said, everybody kind of has a dance partner except for Bon. We all kind of theorize that Jack is Bon, but it's hard to say that like with certainty, especially based on the end here, right? So
yeah, I guess we'll start going to episode 4 then, because I think towards the end of episode 4, I think we get a more definitive answer.
Right.
So you want to start it off here then, I guess, with and then I'll just interject if I see something on or if I hear something from you.
Yeah, of course. So the episode starts with the scene of Ed and Molly, who are also theorized to be possessing an animatronic, a small gray bunny, which is like, it's weird. It's like it's an animatronic, but it's a toy of like a gray bunny at the.
It's almost like a stuffed rabbit, almost, but it's still animatronic.
Right. It's weird how they kind of treat this thing called Rocket, and you see it in Molly's backpack. So they're at the school dance. They're ready to go. You see like the adult section of the school dance, which is something that doesn't happen anymore, I don't think.
I don't think so. I think if I'm going to recall the school dances we were in middle school and high school, I'm sure there were definitely drunk teachers.
I'm sure.
but they were more hidden about it. They had like a flash. They probably went off to the teacher's lounge, grab a drink, come back to supervise the kids.
I do remember a little side tangent. I do remember when we went to, what was it? When we went to DC, and
in 8th grade,
a certain former wrestling coach and English teacher, who I'm not going to name, may have been under the influence of some drink.
Yes. That was never allegedly.
Right, it was all alleged,
never confirmed.
Which is why I'm not naming names. I don't want him appearing in my life again with the summons.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of more than just him who were enjoying the trip just as much as the kids were. Let's say
it was just funny because that was like kind of the first time I was like, oh hey, teachers are normal people.
Yes, that was definitely something that I noticed as well. Then on
right. Anyway,
that was a good time.
So, so anyway, Ed and Molly are looking for Felix, but there's a sign that says Wonderland, which is like a hint as to what's coming for these people. So then it cuts again to another sort of like an introductory tape, introducing all the showstoppers. You get Bond, you get Shah, you get everybody, yada yada yada. And then, we kind of get the note that Charles is coming on as the supervisor, right? And it also implies that he came up with the name for the restaurant. So, again, going back to that ringleader type, so Charles did contribute in quite a big way with Bond's Burgers. He says that he's really close to both the Waltons and the Krankens, showing again how heartbreaking, right, the events of Felix and the kids are. And we get to the scene again of the showstoppers going one by one. Then it glitches. You get a glitch when you get to Shah the sheep, who is possessed by Rosemary, and then it cuts again when we get to Bond, and it shows a bald guy in a tie, like a really like creepy black and white image of a guy that sort of has the facial features, if you want to call them facial features, of Jack, but again, it's nothing that can be confirmed, unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of the overlays and like the artifacting we see in the footage and the videos they're meant to be kind of like how tapes kind of distort and wear away over time, right? So it's not super clear imagery. They may be heavily distorted, even more so than they technically already are.
Yeah.
And they're like, there for like maybe a frame or two sometimes. Yep. So, there's a lot of time when, if you're watching these analog, like horror story stuff where you'll, on YouTube, you'll hit the space bar, pause it, right, and use your left and right arrow to move frame by frame. Like, honestly, the only way you're going to be able to get a quote unquote clear look at some of these overlays and artifacting, which are all very intentional.
Yeah, no, for sure. You have to be watching these. Like, normally I like to consume my content with like one eye on the video and one eye on like work. But with these, you have to sit and watch.
Absolutely, because you'll miss something and you won't even think about it, going forward. Because again, it's a framer, so you'll even see them. Also, one thing that I saw here when I was watching this part. So I saw that when they were playing the video, right? It looked like a DVD menu.
Yeah.
Which confused me because I was like, "This is supposed to be a VHS from what it looks like."
Yeah, that is interesting, right?
Kind of confused me. I'm probably just nitpicking here, but I couldn't find any answers online after a little bit of digging. So I was just like, okay, so I'll just let it slide. It might just be like something overlooked, or they did it and I'm missing something. I'm not, I wasn't exactly
right.
sure.
It could also be like one of those training things like a CDI or something like that.
Oh, true, yeah. And when I think of that as well too, it's like, oh, is there artifacting in old DVDs, right? Like I don't think there is, but it could have been something that's been converted, because even in the YouTube realm, right? In like there's a little bit of like, actually, this is another thing that I noticed as well too. So when I paused and actually read the description, because remember I said before, like there's always stuff kind of hidden around the video itself, the other websites, right? If you read the description, it's the poster Anthony, right?
Yes.
The supposed poster of the person who finds these videos and is uploading them. So they talked about the pandemic as like a reason for why there was a delay, which referential obviously, and then they said that I wrote here specifically. He claims that he uploaded the videos online, but he said he never watched the actual videos. But then at the bottom of the description, he mentioned some of what the footage contains. So I was like, that's like a discrepancy there in terms of like the person posting the stuff. So I was like, okay. So that's kind of a, I don't know if that was, I'm going to assume everything's intentional, right? Because this whole project seems to be very, very curated. You know, just one of those things that I noticed that, again, just, he says that they found this footage, in like a locker, right?
Yes.
And then they finally knocked it open, and then they decided to just upload the videos without him watching it. Again, like, that doesn't exactly clear up anything, but it makes me curious to see, is like, okay, so is Anthony involved later on down the line, as like, are they possibly sharing this on purpose, or is it just like a genuine curiosity?
Right. So is it going to kind of become meta where Anthony and all these other, like, all his friends become part of the story, or what, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of curious about, how that, you know, kind of breaks the isolation of it just being something that happened in the past to being something that, you know, like story-wise is happening, like, exists in our world today.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, and then we also get the I mentioned before, the videos present as if they've been layered over multiple times. I mentioned that earlier, right? Again, a lot of ghosting, artifacting, cuts between footage, and then you'll see like a split second of like an old of something that was previously on the VHS, and then they clearly hit stop and then hit record again. But you know, in the millisecond of time that starts again, there's a small section that doesn't get recorded over, and again we get like a frame of the original, whatever could have been under there, that they overwrote with the recordings of them working on the animatronics.
Right. Hold on, I'm trying to find the video itself here, because I'm getting a little confused with how this goes here. Oh God, I don't need you shaking your face at me. All right, so now we're at the point, right? So we meet, we know who Charles is now. We've seen all the little glitchy, scary parts, right? Now we're kind of getting to the point where they're in like the backstage, and they're going through all the tech.
Yeah, they're testing the this is a cool thing, the facial recognition.
Yeah. So, you know, at a little bit, we have like a little go through where Susan's kind of explaining the tech and all of that, and then you get like another little jump scare where she's like, she can't breathe or something like that for days. It's, you know, you get like a big jump scare with her face on it, and then it ends up cutting to, eventually we get to the point where it gets to basically like CCTV footage, kind of, but in its own special way, of Susan and Charles in the, you know, in the backstage area with the Banny animatronic, and she's showing him how it works, right?
Yeah, like how it's able to move along on its own, right? It's mobile. The Banny animatronic approaches both of them, who are standing in the corner of the room, like near the door, and then it does a facial scan of each of them and then recognizes them. I like that in the worlds built around FNAF or the Walten Files, there's like tech that seems way ahead of its time. Right? Like, because again, this is taking place in 72, I believe, in the footage, right? So there's 2 years before the company, before Bond's Burgers actually like officially opens. And you know, we're talking about facial recognition. They're talking about how it can recognize up to like, what is it, like 40 faces or something, it said. Which is, you know, really cool, like, you know, in theory, right? Of like how this stuff could work. You know, to even like today, obviously we have that kind of tech. But back then, I like the idea of them like, oh, this is very, very cutting edge, and they're using it to create a kids play area, basically.
Right. Instead of using this in like the military, you're doing it for a children's themed burger restaurant.
Yeah.
Which is just funny as hell. So
Yeah, full robotics
Mhm.
and everything.
The other thing that's interesting is the way that things kind of progress on the CCTV. So what ends up happening is you see them kind of as static images, and then the screen will fade to black and then come back, and you will have seen the animatronic or the whatever sort of entity, move a little bit, and then it'll go back, and then it'll move again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll see here in a little bit, kind of reveals some pretty interesting, sort of horror mechanics, right? So they go through and they whatchamacallit, they end for the day, I guess, right? So they go through the gosh, I'm trying to like read this. I just watched it again.
And there's also a short conversation that is also recorded in the audio
Right.
files, right? Of the interaction between Charles and Susan, right? They talk about everything's done. Charles says like, "Okay, I can really use a drink now, right? I can really go for a beer." And then and then Susan kind of reacts to it as like, "Hey, little soon for that, isn't it?" Kind of thing. And because of they're aware of the issues that Felix has with his alcohol problem. And it was begun to be explored in the third episode, I want to say, where Felix's wife is leaving him. He's spiraling. He's like a full-blown alcoholic essentially at this point. And we also, we know from part 3 that he gets into a drunk driving accident. Ed and Molly, Jackson and Rosemary's kids, right? Rosemary
is Jack's wife. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, and I'm trying to remember the timeline now of the video. Did they show that in the beginning? Oh, no, they showed that in the middle, right? Of the accident itself.
Right. So that's coming up. The only thing we get in the beginning is them looking for Felix in the high school.
Okay. And then we get the animated shots of the room. Blacking the screen blacks, lights back up. We should see each of the sprites, I guess, representing each of the characters.
Yeah, each of the animatronics sitting there,
moving around, or the humans moving around as well too. Charles and Susan. They call it a night. They refer back to Felix's problem.
Yep.
And then after that, do we get the accident?
Well, before that even stops, we notice that the rocket bunny is moving on its own, right? So
yes.
That's one of like the first things that's like, oh shit, like one of the animatronics is moving on its own, and it's
without the interaction or without the involvement of Charles and Susan.
So then eventually we get to see kind of Rocket move around. It kind of nestles up next to Buzu for whatever reason. By the way, also Charles mentions Lily in the episode, who is mentioned in the Bunny Farm game, right?
Yes.
Which I thought was just pretty cool, kind of. So before we get to more humans, it cuts back to the backstage area, and Bon is here with a black and white face for some reason, and we learn that we are watching. God, the names are so crazy here.
It's a lot to keep track of, obviously, because it's a very expansive story.
We are now watching the woman get stuffed into Banny, right?
Oh yeah, so we actually get to see Susan animated. This is also the part where again we're seeing like the animation skill kind of being like taken up a little bit of a notch here, right?
Yep.
It's still very creepy and kind of like I think it's meant to be very minimalistic looking in terms of animation, but it's way more than the previous episodes, right? Before where it was mostly stills and kind of like that cutout animation style, very South Park, right? It still has that, but there's more of it in this episode.
It's a little bit smoother. So so it's first represented by like the backstage or the CCTV footage, and then we get to actually see Bond like strangle and rip her face off, which is like insane.
Yeah, we
like,
get
the first time I saw this. I was like, oh shit, this guy got good at this stuff.
Yeah, it's a long take, right? Because again, we see Susan walking through the back. She sees the box, and then we see Bon, like as I guess you can consider it a jump scare where he shows up and then just
Shungoku
starts
Satsu's her.
just
Hits her with the raging demon.
yeah,
Just fucking destroys her shit out of nowhere.
yeah, and so he basically snaps her neck, but doesn't kill her, right? Because we also get, if you refer back to episode 2 and episode 3, where again she's technically not dead, but she says she's getting hungry, she hasn't eaten, she can't breathe, right? That was referenced in this episode as well too. And we just see her like on the ground, like twitching.
Yeah, man.
Like
it's
very,
tough.
like this is a brutal. Like they stayed on this. In terms of like they as in like as if it's like we're talking cinematically. Yeah, like they left that shot and they let it roll for a bit, and we see Bon going over her body, and then I believe she stops moving. Then there's like it basically starts dragging her away to clearly to do something, right? And then we get a cut, and then we move towards now we see I guess it's a cut in a jump to a different time with Jack going to Felix's home.
So this is the night of the accident. Jack goes to Felix's house to try to find him and his kids, and is basically just like reacting the way a father would, right? Where are my kids? Yes. Where are my kids?
And we hear the voicemail, which I think was played in part 3.
Or it was like alluded to it, right? Or we heard like a snippet of it, but here we hear like the whole thing. So he's calling Felix. Where are my kids? What's going on? What happened? And then he ends up showing up at his house.
Yes, and we just a step up in animation. We get to see Jack actually with like full on like depth, right? Where we're seeing him walking to the building. This is I feel like also like our first look at Jack, like animated
right?
too,
it's not
right? Because everything before this was the mutilated faces or the not mutilated, but like the warped faces,
the really creepy face of him just staring there, smiling at everybody, right? And then eventually it cuts to static, and it cuts to Felix in a hole, which...
Yeah, with the static as the background, which is like a kind of a cool image.
And from what I've seen and from I gathered, right, he's still... I mean, he was just in a car accident, a major car accident. He's probably concussed. He's probably, like, completely in a daze. He's also just coming back to consciousness, kind of. And in there is the bunny. Right, Rocket the bunny, the plush toy, covered in blood. It is assumed then that there's a hard cut to Felix in the car with his jacket on, which is weird. So we're going to talk about this a little bit, but I do have some, like, maybe it's just an inconsistency that the creator didn't think about. So it cuts to Felix in the car with the coat on, right? And the car is destroyed. There's blood everywhere. Whatever. Then cuts to 3 graves, basically. So you have the 2 graves, which are assumed to be Ed and Molly. Then there's the undug grave, which Felix has prepared for himself, presumably because he's either thought he was going to die or he's going to kill himself. Felix ends up getting out of his grave, walks over to the edge of the mountain, right?
Like a cliff.
Holding bloodied children stuff, right? And you get
like the backpack, the shoes.
You get a shot of his back, right? If Felix was wearing the coat, why is there blood on the white shirt? That's just the kind of the thing that I thought of. I guess he had to have taken it off at some point.
Unless he's also bleeding.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that's kind of why I assumed it was.
It was just weird, and I don't know, like it was just weird, but I guess it does make sense in a way, but also it doesn't, because it looks like the white spot is where the seat would be, right?
True.
So it kind of it's kind of just weird. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe there's something else I'm missing, but it just was kind of weird to me that like there's this like it looks like he wasn't wearing the coat in the car, but he's shown wearing the coat in the car. But again, it could just be me. The other thing that I thought of at first was this is another person. This is like the other person that Felix hit or something. But from what other people have told me and from what I can tell, it looks like it's just Felix immediately after the accident.
And that's the thing too, right? With the fact that it's the accident, right? we get a still shot of like, you know, because it's cutting with him in the grave to there's like a smash cut to him back in the
Yeah,
car,
that's what I'm
right?
talking about.
And we just see like the rear windshield just splattered
Yep.
in blood, which is again also pretty brutal because again we're talking about two kids in the back just
Yeah.
exploded
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Yeah, really intense. I mean, we've already seen some brutal stuff in the previous, right? But or like more scary stuff, I guess, in the first 3 episodes, right? But this one felt because it broke the rule, right? Of like how like most media won't hurt
Yeah.
children, like they won't show the children being hurt. The fact that yeah, sure, technically we're not seeing them hurt in this one, but it's very very
It's
implied,
clear
I guess,
what's
if you
going
want
on
to
here.
use the term. We know what's happening here. It's really really dark in this one, because again we got to see Susan herself getting mangled, and then we see the aftermath or the incident, and then the aftermath afterwards.
Yeah, pretty wild stuff. So Felix gets to the edge of the mountain,
Cliff.
throws some stuff over there. It looks like he's gonna throw himself next, and then he pussies out. He can't do it, right?
Yeah.
So
So he like plops down there. He also has the rocket
he
as well in
he
his
can't
hand.
get rid of
and kinda
Rocket
just
for
plops
some
down.
reason, right? Luckily, he doesn't because that's still where the kids are, technically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to the interior of a house, and we're hearing Felix, right? So this is now
Yes,
Felix talking to Jack, confessing basically to everything that he's done, and how you hate me and I hate myself too. No shit, stupid.
Yeah. Also, like, yeah, Felix is like a very hateable character. Like he's an alcoholic. Like initially, I was like, okay, I felt bad that his life's spiraling, his wife is leaving, right? And then, of course, at the end of 3, we hear he gets into an accident with the kids, right? But here it's like, yeah, you just did that. You hid their bodies, right? And then you're gonna have this little pissy tantrum, basically. That everyone's gonna hate me. You're a terrible person. Right. Yes, of course.
You got shit faced and killed 2 kids.
Fuck you.
The other funny thing that happens here too is that he I can't get rid of Rocket, and it feels like it's following me because it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's basically confirmed that Ed and Molly are both possessing the stuffed toy, because
we get a shot of Rocket in front of like a window, and we see the bloodied ghost images of Ed and Molly show up in the background, outside of the building.
Exactly. And so it could just cut to him crying boo-hoo, I'm a murderer. And then it cuts to basically just like a complete no. So we have one more little bit here. So it turns out that Rocket, I guess Rocket the plush and Rocket the animatronic are 2 separate things, but they're also like the same, because
I assumed it was the same thing. I assumed they were they were one unit, but now that I think about it, it goes back to being unbloodied, back into the back room again.
Right, but so here's the thing. So what ends up happening is it's a hard cut to back to Bon putting Susan into Banny, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the CCTV footage, we can see that Rocket is in the room with them. Is in the room with him.
Yes.
What ends up happening is Bon acknowledges that that Rocket is in the room, kind of gives them like a nod and a shush, right? As to don't tell anybody, right? And then the Rocket opens its eyes, and you have one eye of each color, I guess insinuating that the one kid had green eyes, the other had more like hazel eyes. And so now they're in the animatronic too, which is weird, right? Like,
yeah. And then we see like essentially the last moment before the final touches of Banny, right? And then we get showed this. Oh, we never mentioned this before. There's like this in the beginning of the video of episode 4. There's like this open field / meadow looking thing.
Yeah. That's
for not very long. It's just kind of just there, and then it continues on. We like hard cut to there now, right? Back to there, to the open field, white. grassy, kind of like farm meadow kind of area,
This
right?
is Wonderland.
And we see Wonderland. Okay, so we see the two red spirits of Ed and Molly, right? One has like the pigtails, the other one has just the like a bowl cut,
Yes,
essentially,
yes.
right? From what it looks like. And we see them as these red ghostly figures, and they're having this conversation about how they have to help
Susan out.
the lady Susan because they're witnessing Bond stuffing her into the Banny
Right.
animatronic.
Which is again really fucked up to make kids watch this happen. I mean, granted they're dead
Yeah.
kids already, so like it's just like a whole shit sandwich of bad, but my God, that's tough.
Yeah, this is very, very, very dark turn. I guess it's involving kids now, right? Where now that they're actually like actively involved. They see the spirit. I guess it's a spirit.
I
right?
would call it the spirit of Susan, who kind of looks like from like the Ring, I guess. Her head is tilted to the side, which is again is kind of like a little twisted, but it got a little like honestly got a little chuckle out of me. I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
Because she did get her neck snapped, like 10 minutes ago, basically.
So that's why
in the
she's
video.
kind of always walking like this, and she's like, hello, where am I? And then there's a voice that hears from the white, and it's the same white figure that we saw the hard cut to in the intro here. Sorry, I'm just trying to go through it here. Basically, it's like, am I dead? Is this heaven? Whatever it is. But no, it's not. They're basically in, I guess, they're in like either like the spirit realm or like purgatory. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah, it feels very purgatory to me.
They're in like the waiting room. This kind of feels like the waiting room to heaven, right? And then the white figure approaches them and introduces himself as Bond. Doesn't introduce himself as who we thought of, Jack, or whoever it could be.
Yeah.
Because, as we know, like, Jack was still kind of alive last we saw him. Which kind of is, like, why it's weird to me that this is kind of, like, it's always been assumed to be Jack. But is it? I don't know, right? So
at this moment is where I think now we can almost confirm it's Jack because of the necktie.
Yeah.
The heavily morphed face, the features look very similar to Jack, right? The elongated face, the big smile. They look very similar to like the portrait of Jack that we've seen in the previous episodes.
Right. And
because Bond wears a bow tie, necktie. So I was like, I think in this moment, my belief is it is now safe to say that the spirit is Jack, right? As he's embodied, even though he's technically physically embodied now in the physical realm as Bond, but the spirit of Jack is still like technically alive and is still in charge, I guess technically.
Right, and
it's a very distorted, twisted version of Jack, but it's still Jack. I think that's how I'm understanding or how I'm receiving this information.
Right, and it could also be like a metaphorical thing where his spirit is broken because his kids are gone. Because again, remember, Susan's still alive, technically. She's barely breathing and hungry and dying slowly, but she's still alive in that Banny costume. So I guess it does make sense that this could also be Jack's spirit. And again, it's just a lot of, I will fix you. You like to fix this. Put the mask on. You'll be fixed again. Everything will be okay. The kind of the sick part is like, I'm sorry for what I had to do, but you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Literally broke her face.
Yeah, and again, this idea of like this you'll accept your new form, your new body, and they've referenced it before as like this idea of like just making you beautiful, your transformation, right? It's this very twisted view of what it is to be right, I guess, right, to be proper and to be fixed. where it's like, okay, it's the animatronics and stuffing the bodies inside of them has this kind of like, you know, dark twisted marriage of mechanical parts and the human
Yeah.
soul.
Because again, it cuts. You get a quick like smash cut to her embodying the suit again, with like a shadowy figure walking around, which, you know, we think like Shadow Man feeds me when the lights go off or whatever it is from one of the earlier episodes. So that could be what we're seeing here. And then it cuts back to Wonderland, and it's just Ed and Molly again, who I guess are just stuck there because they're dead, and the other two are still alive.
Yes, right. Because at this point, their bodies are not inside of an animatronic, but their spirits are. Right. There's no because the bodies are still technically buried in the woods.
Correct. That makes perfect sense. So, and that's the other thing that Jack talks about. They need to be tethered to a vessel, right? So that's kind of why each animatronic has a different person inside of it. So it makes sense that they're not, number one, they're not tied to just one animatronic or one vessel, right?
Stuffed
because
animal.
they're not in the animatronic, they're not in the stuffed animal, they're just spirits at this point, so they can move within the character, right? The character's two different bodies, basically. I guess that makes sense. And then the episode kind of ends with like this really weird, somber kind of old music, right? Old fartsy music, I guess is the only way to call it.
Yeah. And it's funny because the ending kind of just reminded. I don't know why it just reminded me of the ending of the Hulk, where it's just him walking off into the distance. But like it's Ed and Molly. They're just walking off into the white of this like Wonderland, basically, right? They disappear off into not into the sunset, but they like disappear in the distance.
Yeah, man. So the super fun episode ends here. Apparently there's like a secret. I didn't know this because I kind of like forgot to watch the game theories and whatever. So there's apparently like a hidden video following this called Lacrimosa. I didn't watch this.
Okay, I didn't see that either. I saw it referenced in the wiki as I was like trying to recall things, but I was like, I don't remember that. I'll probably like I made a note to myself. I'll go check out what this is later. And I never got around to watching it either. But I did watch the map head video afterwards after I watched it, because you know like whenever you watch something like this, there's a lot of theories and a lot of like different people understanding the information differently, right, and processing everything. So, I was happy to know that some of my suspicions and some of my theories lined up, kind of with some of his.
Yes.
Because obviously he's definitely spent more time with this property than I have. So I was like, cool. Okay, so I'm not completely lost in the sauce here. A couple things he did notice that he mentioned, like he clarified the whole making you beautiful, making you whole thing to me, right, in his video. So I was like, okay, so I was kind of there, but then remembering the idea of the making you whole, making you beautiful, you know, the combination, the amalgamation of human body parts and soul with the animatronics kind of thing going on.
So here it is. Here's the episode. Do you want to watch it? And
yeah, I'm done. Let's do a watch along then. So Lacrimosa, Walten Files.
I sent it to you on Discord as a message.
Okay, cool. Let's see here. How long is this one?
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, cool. So let's let me see. Let me stop it from playing real quick. I'm going to. Okay. It's only 7 minutes. We could just watch this together and kind of analyze.
Yeah.
As
Do you want to watch on the same screen, or do you want to just 3, 2, 1 go?
We'll just 3, 2, 1 go. We'll do that. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. May 4th, 1974. Is this the
This
car
is.
accident? Okay. Yeah, it was the. So now we see site inspectors, right? The medical examiners, I guess, from what it looks like. Everything's. Ooh.
Just pops up. What is the Cyber
So
Fun console with a security guard and
Yeah.
the clown guy, Billy?
So this is like, I guess, explaining the
Yes.
tech.
Oh, we can't call Charles.
Yeah, the number is blocked out here. See, the thing is too is like with a lot of this project, like they stay on certain shots
Right.
very long, and it just makes me feel uncomfortable, like waiting for what's gonna. Oh, there we go. Well,
Yeah, you can hear like the knocking in the back.
yeah, we saw like a shadowy figure in the background for a second. Hear the knocking again in the background.
Huh. It's weird. It's like you're dreaming, and then you hear something.
Is that a face in the background?
Yeah.
Oh, there it goes, showing up right. Who is that?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh. Okay, so this is the phone call of Susan being reported that
Right,
she's
from
missing.
Charles.
Cause yeah.
Jesus.
Is that Jack?
No, that is the white face is.
Oh, the white face. Okay.
So this. Yeah, that's like the creepy face.
Yeah.
That's quote Bond apparently.
Bond. Okay.
You know, you shouldn't watch this if you have epilepsy. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they should probably get a warning on these videos.
Now the face is upside down.
This is the Yeah, this is the animation of the facial recognition, right?
Yeah.
Again, the software. This animation that they've done a couple times now is I think is really cool. Like when it's just the
Oh
the
God,
picture
her head is
drawn,
upside.
like the drawn.
Her head is upside down in the body. But she's still breathing. Good for her.
Still breathing. Very unsettling.
Right?
Because now it sounds even more labored because she's stuck inside of the animatronic. Yeah, her vision's impaired because the eye doesn't line
Right.
up all the way. Very back rooms.
Very back room.
Or is it the sound of the animatronics moving? Or the robotics moving?
No, it's definitely her breathing. Yeah.
Is her breathing? Okay.
Think about it. Put like a mask on and breathe.
True.
Sounds like that.
True. Okay.
Or stick your head in a costume. Oh.
So a silhouette somebody in the doorway.
I missed it. Damn. I was looking at it
Yeah,
too.
it was on
I
the
missed it.
Left side of the door. Yeah, it was. I thought for a second it was like a view of Benny from the back or something.
Oh shit.
Okay, and that's the end of it. Just hard cut right there.
Okay, yeah. So Bond is like,
So
what is? Wow. All right. Here's the other thing
okay,
too.
so yeah, we get a last image
Yep.
of Bond right at the end. Okay,
Here's the other thing too. If you look at the description,
Mhm.
it gives a Felix like a police report. So how do you want to do this? You want to just say, all right, so we watched the hidden episode or whatever, or are you going to put all of that into the episode?
maybe we'll just have it there and just let it roll. So if the listener you want to watch along with us, you just go back and just play basically.
All right, so we watched the episode, and the one thing that I noticed before we even watched it is the description in the of the episode is actually the police report from Felix given to the authorities after the accident, right? So here we go. Report 90892, May 4th, 1974, Brighton City Police Department. Brighton Ghosts factors in pretty heavily to findjackwalton.com. So, I guess it's like Brighton, Michigan or something like that. And I guess this WRR, I'm not sure what that means. It's probably something related to law enforcement.
Well, you're in the description. Well, you're in the description right now. Oh wait. I think I'm not watching the right thing.
No, we watched the same thing. Lacrimosa, right?
No. I'm saying I'm not on the right page. I think I think I watched an unlisted video of it.
It was unlisted,
okay.
right?
Okay, gotcha.
So,
okay, I'm just making sure I'm not losing my mind here.
Problem. Felix Archer Kranken reportedly arrived at the station in the morning on May 3rd. He had a broken pair of glasses, dirty blue pants, and a yellow dress shirt covered in dirt and blood. When I got the call, he, capital H, was already taken into custody. We sat him down for a few hours, and he revealed valuable information about a case we were previously told about earlier that same day by Mr. Jack Walton. Walton's two youngest kids, Ed and Molly Walton, had disappeared with Kranken the night prior. Felix's alibi stated he was unconscious after the car crash for about 20 minutes. When he woke up, the kids had ran off. Wow. Damn. That's fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually fucked. Okay.
So the gist of this whole episode, basically, it gives a little bit more of a look at the moments after the car crash. That is at least where it begins, where you have, what did you call them again? People surveying the scene?
The medical examiners, I guess, or
going through that. Then it cuts to another like training video of the Cyber Fun console. Basically, it's like a disc filled with all like the animatronics' vital informations about how they walk, how like the walking patterns work, its ability to interact with customers, the facial recognition system, the map tracking and things like that. It then cuts to, like, throughout this whole video, you can start to hear people knocking, which we now assume is Charles. Charles calls in a missing persons report for Susan, who is, of course, inside the Banny suit now. Bond is still trying to put this costume on this woman's dead body, and she is still alive. She eventually manages to start piloting the suit and starts walking through, like, the back rooms of the restaurant. What we assume is the restaurant, right? It could be just whatever. It could be some other sort of, like, a spiritual realm, but at least from what we know, it's the back rooms of the restaurant.
Yeah, so now we again assume that's the back of the restaurant.
And so she's walking. She eventually stumbles upon basically like a CRT television playing playing like the top right corner of a room, but eventually, some sort of dark figure obfuscates her view. A face cuts in, typical weird, creepy stuff. All the while, as she's making her way down the hallway, Bond, in the costume, peeks his way out and then cuts his way back in. A door, what we assume is a door, slightly opens a little bit, revealing Wonderland again. As Susan makes her way towards it, though, Bond, the bunny, kind of like appears, and we don't know what's going to happen at that point. The episode abruptly ends, and here we are. That's it.
Yeah. Again, it honestly doesn't answer any questions. It just
it makes more questions, but it was really nice.
Yeah.
And it's cool to have these kind of like hidden videos that add a little bit more color to the episodes without increasing the runtime. Like, think about if that episode that was already almost 40 minutes long had another 7 minutes on top of it, right?
Yeah.
It was cool to have these other little things here to, add some color, but also get you to, get you from one episode to the next, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. Now that we've both gotten to, I didn't even realize. I didn't realize this is specifically the immediate after the episode 4. So good. Thanks for informing me of that. Yeah. Again, it doesn't clarify anything else. It just expands more. Again, more information of what, I guess, not even really information, right? We just get to see, from what it looks like, maybe Susan, I guess, in her last moments of essentially being alive. Yeah. Right, because again, the idea of that door opening to that Wonderland area, yeah, like now that definitely, I think now it's safe to say again that it is like a purgatory.
Yeah, right,
like a possible escape out of the human realm for at least her soul to be away and not be stuck attached to this machine. But Bond is like, nah, son, right. You're stuck here.
You're stuck here. Yep, and then. That's it. So now we wait for episode 5, The Faces of Grief. It should be on its way out here. The creators already said that 21 minutes of the episode is done already.
Okay.
And the full runtime should be about 25 to 28 minutes. So we could see this rather soon.
Yeah, because, this only took a while. How long was the time between episode 3 and episode 4?
Oh, God.
Get onto their channels.
3 years
anyway. Whoa!
But that's not the right way to look at it. So you have to look at it between like the Relocate project and then
true
that, right?
Yeah, because I know there's also like the side videos as well too, right? Like
that was June 28th, and then episode 3 was March 19th of 21.
Okay, so we're still 3 years then. Okay.
Right, no, but you're saying like from the episodes between each other. So June, July, August, September, October, November, January, February, 8 months.
8 months. Okay.
So it's been 4 months.
And since 4 months since I'm late to watching this. Okay, cool. Has there been any other information been like dug out recently, or do you know anything?
I don't. All I know about is that episode 4 was just out. So I watched it, and it was great. that was
Gotcha. Okay.
really all that I got. We're not going to really have too much more, I guess, until episode 5 drops. So,
I sorry to tangent here, just because I'm on the Walten Files like YouTube channel. The dog sipping the cup of Pepsi is
Yes,
just
it is.
funny.
It was very funny.
You know, a hard juxtaposition against, you know, the very creepy found footage stuff we've been watching for the last, you know, however long at this point.
Martin's profile picture is really funny.
But yeah, like, you know, again, like I like kind of being a little bit late to this stuff. I don't know about you. I know you said as soon as it came out, you watched it, right? Or you caught it relatively early, I guess, compared to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you're so very early then. Versus me, who's like 4 months late to the party. But because I'm late, I get to watch other analytic videos around it, right? Because there's people who have been very, like, you know, trying to digest this as much as they possibly can. You know, they've been chewing on it and trying to draw out as much information, right? And put together all their theories as much as possible. Some of which are just full chicanery, right? They're just like, I feel like I'm not even watching the same thing as some of these other people that I've watched their videos on. So kind of why I stuck to just Matt Pat, because I feel like he has a pretty good grasp on the whole subject. But I remember when I was watching Matt Pat's video, I found it funny that he referenced Tim Curry in one of his videos. You know, because the way that this again, the white spirit figure that we saw in the Wonderland, right? It has a very specific cadence to their speech, and he referenced Tim Curry, who's my best friend, because I met him at New York Comic Con. Yeah, I got a picture with Tim Curry, and I was like, you know, best friend with him along with Dr. Bosco.
That's so funny.
But yeah, and it's this entire world that is being built is very interesting. Again, something I never thought I would have gotten into. And like, if you never introduced me to it, like, this is an entire side of the internet that I would have not, or YouTube, you know, that would have never even like delved into.
Yeah, man. And honestly, before the pandemic, neither would I. I wouldn't have gotten into any of this stuff until I just went down like the Five Nights at Freddy's rabbit hole, and then found myself at Analog Horror, really liking the aesthetic. I don't know, it's just something that's equal parts like unsettling, but also like familiar to me, because again, we grew up in that era. I mean, with all of the you know, with the VHS tapes and camcorders and all of that, right? Like, my father had a camcorder
and Chuck E. Cheese. Obviously, that's like you know, the one I spent a lot of time there as a kid. Yeah, and like, one thing I'd like wanted to point out is that, like, I like the fact that, so I'm not very caught up on FNAF. It's just okay. Nobody just never really like, it just never really grabbed me. In terms of like the lore of it, I guess, you know what I mean. I just kind of played the game, and I was like, cool, I got what I needed out of this thing. Which I know that people have made entire careers, obviously, out of analyzing FNAF, but just for me, I guess not really for me. But from what I've seen though, and from what I understand, like, in the FNAF world, do they investigate the happenings around like the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff? Because like here, like, you know, it's clearly like people are aware that people are going missing, and you know what I mean. No. Like, they're aware that things are locked away.
Yeah, no, there are tidbits of like newspaper clippings of the kids going missing and things like that. So it's not just like this is all happening and nobody's doing anything about it. It leads to the restaurants getting shut down and everything. So it does have it does have some law enforcement elements in there.
Okay. So like that's what I was curious of, because like here is very, you know, that we're talking about, like, you know, we just saw now again the police, right? The investigators, people are we heard Charles on the phone, you know. Was that Charles, right, on the phone, reporting that he hasn't seen Susan in a couple days? Okay, yeah. So like that's what I was wondering, because again, I've not really dug into the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, basically. So okay, so in both universes, then I guess the people are aware something's happening, but they don't know exactly what.
Exactly. It's people know that their coworkers are missing. People know that their kids are not home, right? and so do the authorities, as we saw, right? Like, we saw the police report, we heard Charles give the missing persons report, right? FNAF doesn't do it as obvious, but there are, there's like news stories, like I said, there's clippings and things like that within, the deep, dark parts of the game. Like, you'll see stuff when you're looking, behind the desk and everything when you're not fighting for your life. So,
okay.
So it is a thing that happens in those series too.
Yeah, this entire series has been really interesting. Just the fact that it seems so fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say I'm not a creative type. I'm a musician, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm more of the performative type, right? In terms of like creating something like this, I'm very curious to see what they envision in the first place to start a project like this, right? That has this very large overarching storyline with, interweaving footage and making sure everything lines up and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, because I remember like even getting caught up for this episode and having to rewatch. I had to like write down dates of things happening, right? Like, that I would see in the videos, stuff like that. So it's like it's really hard for me viewing it. It's hard for me to keep track of. So I'm like, very interested in how they come around creating this stuff to make sure that everything lines up and nothing steps on their own toes, right? Because it's one person for the most part just kind of creating this,
right? It's a symphony, which is like a lot of the background music and what a lot of the musical pieces in here kind of reference, right? You can, if you go through the wiki, there's quite a bit of references to requiems,
classical
and things
music
like
pieces,
that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this is.
All of which also have like a very specific reasoning from what it looks like, the referential music.
Exactly.
Anyway.
But to put it into your perspective too, that's basically what this is. It's basically just like a symphony. You have like
different parts all kind of coming together and playing around with each other, and kind of, one thing gets a highlight for a little bit, one thing comes to the forefront, things are in the background, and then music is like a story, right? So this is kind of like, you're along for the ride when you're sitting in front of like an orchestra or a symphonic band or something. You listen to a piece of music. Usually the program is also laid out in terms of like a way to tell a story. That's what kind of like there are some like connections here in terms of like the way that music and the way that obviously other media are used in terms of storytelling. But yeah, this is really cool. I've never thought I would ever be interested in something like this. And like, now I'm sure there's a lot more of it too. Like, that it's not specifically just this story, but this is the one that I was introduced to. So now I'm like, okay, this is like kind of like what I'm in the ride for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I'm glad. It's a lot of fun. This is like the first thing that I kind of found after getting into the FNAF, not doldrums, but like into FNAF. So for me, like, I like it too. And I, like I said, I really enjoy the analog horror aesthetic, and I also enjoy the story and the whole mascot horror thing. But I'm glad you really enjoy it too, especially because I know horror is really not your thing, but I think it's not really horror in the traditional sense. It's very unsettling, but at the end of the day, it is a very jarring family drama, right?
Yeah, it is more dramatic than a typical horror story that I would think I would initially think of, and it's a lot of the interweaving interactions between the different characters and seeing where and how they end up is almost more interesting than my uncomfortability around the subject. You know what I mean? Like I will put aside how unsettling a lot of this stuff is, just because I'm so curious to see where this goes.
Exactly. Anything else on your end?
No, that's really it. Again, I got a good watch out of this. I'm still watching a couple more other theory videos and analysis videos from other creators and stuff like that who are following the Walten Files. So again, like, now I'm just kind of like along the ride. I'll do a little bit of digging, probably forget about it in like a month or two, and then next time the next episode comes out, just let me know and I'll watch it again.
Yeah, for sure. So I look forward to episode 5 dropping the day before this episode comes out.
Imagine.
And I look forward to doing episode 5 with you in September.
Yeah, well, another 4 months late.
All right. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for listening. Again, we're RDXP. Follow us online. Be one of the only Twitter followers that isn't a porn bot. That'd be nice.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
And we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Probably why I enjoyed it, because I didn't have to think too hard for this episode.
Oh, same.